But the other thing that's really interesting about this particular 45 that's different than most 45s, and let me see if I have another one here to show you, is that you see this tiny little hole here, which was unusual for 45s. 45s usually had a bigger hole. So here's a Paul McCartney 45, ebony and ivory, and you'll see the difference there. The hole on this 45 is much larger than the hole on that 45. So the next question that somebody's going to ask is, well, since this one has the hole of a regular record, just the normal size hole, which I think is about 1/4 inch, does this play at 45 RPMs or does it play at 33? Because 12-inch records play at 33 1/3 RPMs, where the 45s, that's one of the reasons we call them 45s, the singles played at 45 RPMs. The answer to that question is, yes, this plays at 45. It's a totally normal single. So what was with the small hole? Well, here's the thing. There wasn't anything magic about the hole on a 45. The reason that 45s had the larger hole was all physics. The point was, these 45s, where they were used a lot was in jukeboxes. And you might remember jukeboxes if you're old enough. What those were is that you would go to a bar or a restaurant or whatever, and they'd have a jukebox. And you'd go put a quarter in, or whatever, a dime, and they often called them record machines. You know the song Jump by Van Halen? I'm standing here, got my back against a record machine. That's what he's talking about. It's a jukebox, it's a record machine. And what they would do was that somebody would come in and they would fill this record machines with 45 RPM records, these little singles. And then patrons of the bar or the restaurant would go put a dime or a quarter, put another dime in the jukebox, baby. Remember that from Joan Jett? That's what it means, put a dime in the jukebox. It was to play a song. And what would happen is, if you ever watched one of these things, there was this machine inside that would go and it would reach over, a little arm would grab the single, the 45, and then it would move it over and it would put it on a platter, and then a needle, an arm would come out and start playing it. Well, here's the thing. With this hole so small, the displacement of the friction is over a very small area. Well, so what? Well, here's so what. You play one of these things 100 times a day, and then 100 times the next day, and 100 times the next day. Because there's this small amount of displacement for that friction, this hole starts to wear away a little bit. And then it doesn't fit right on the post, and then it'll start because it's starting to warble, and it just doesn't work. So the idea for the 45, and the reason they made the bigger hole, was that it displaced the friction over a larger area, and it didn't wear out as fast because of that. And so the reason they had the big holes on the 45s was primarily because of jukeboxes. It was in order to keep the record from wearing out. Because they could realistically put a jukebox, or a 45 RPM record in a jukebox, and it'll sit there for years. And if it was a really popular song, it might get played thousands and thousands and thousands of times, where, at home, this was never going to be in a jukebox, and it was never going to get played 100,000 times. You might play this a couple dozen times at your home. It wouldn't matter. So there really, for home use, there really was no reason to put the big hole. The big hole was primarily to displace the friction in such a way that when it was used in a jukebox, that it wouldn't wear out.